The doctor's face told the story before his words did. At exactly 2:47 p.m. on August 13th, 1970, Bruce Lee heard four syllables that end careers. Irreversible. Three specialists, three separate mouths, same verdict. His spine showed damage that should have left him bedridden for life. The nerve compression was severe. The structure compromised. The language was clinical, but the meaning was simple. You will never kick again. But the reports didn't measure the thing staring back at those doctors from the examination table. Not his vertebrae, his will. And it all started with one exercise. So common it sounds harmless. Good mornings. A barbell on your shoulders. A hinge at the hips. A simple bend forward. Done right, it builds a posterior chain. Done wrong, it breaks men in half. And Bruce Lee, at the peak of his powers, did it wrong. Not because he was ignorant, because he was impatient. Because he believed something dangerous. I know my body. This is the story of Bruce Lee's greatest mistake. The movement that nearly destroyed him. The 6 months of darkness that followed. And the moment that shocked even the doctors because it didn't look like healing. It looked like an impossible rebellion. Hong Kong, summer of 1970. Bruce Lee was 29. He wasn't just fit, he was engineered. 2 decades of refinement had turned his body into an instrument. Fast, efficient, brutal. He trained 6 to 8 hours daily, mixing Eastern martial arts with Western strength training, isometrics, sprint work, and experimental protocols years ahead of their time. He was not chasing health. He was chasing edge. And when you train at the frontier, there are no guardrails. Good mornings look innocent on paper. Bar across the shoulders. Legs mostly straight. Bend forward. Stand back up. Simple. But the margin for error is microscopic. One rounded back, one rushed rep, one load too heavy. And the spine collects interest on every shortcut. Bruce had been doing them for months, slowly building up weight. Until the morning he decided to jump. Not gradually. All at once. His training partner that day was Wang Shunliang. Wang noticed it immediately. Bruce was moving differently. He loaded the bar heavier than usual. Much heavier. And then he did something Bruce almost never did. He skipped his warm-up. Skipped the light sets. Wang told him to start lighter, to build up. Bruce waved him off. I know what I can handle. That sentence, more than the barbell, was the real weight on his shoulders. Bruce stepped under the bar, lifted it onto his traps, set his feet, and hinged forward. Wang saw it. Bruce's form wasn't perfect today. His back wasn't flat. His hinge wasn't clean. Halfway down, something shifted. Wang heard it before Bruce even understood it. A sound like a wet branch snapping. A muffled pop from deep inside the lower spine. Bruce's face changed instantly. Color drained out of him like someone pulled a plug. The barbell crashed. Bruce collapsed. For 3 seconds, he didn't move. Then the pain arrived, violent, overwhelming, animal. Bruce Lee, who could take punches without blinking, was on the floor making sounds Wang had never heard a human being make. And then Bruce whispered something that turned Wang cold. I can't feel my legs. The ambulance ride took 17 minutes. Bruce stayed conscious. He stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched, sweating through his shirt. Below his waist, nothing. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. The lights were too bright. The halls too loud. At Queen Mary Hospital, the first exams revealed catastrophic damage. L4 compressed. Discs herniated. Nerve impingement. Protective spasms so severe they struggled to image the area cleanly. But the doctors didn't need perfect images. They'd seen this before. 3 specialists. Same conclusion. Permanent. One of them was blunt. Mr. Lee, you need to prepare yourself. You will never kick again. You may never run again. Your career is over. Bruce didn't argue. He didn't plead. He didn't negotiate. He just looked at the ceiling and went quiet. For 3 days, he said almost nothing. Linda visited daily. Students came. Friends. Film colleagues. Bruce was polite, present, but empty. Something had shut off behind his eyes. It wasn't sadness. It was worse. It was the sound of a mind that had never accepted no, trying to swallow the word. Finished. On the 4th day, Linda walked in and froze. Bruce wasn't lying down. He was sitting up. pale, shaking, pain written into his face, yet his eyes were different, focused. He looked at Linda and said, "Bring me books. Every book on spinal injuries, rehab, anatomy, therapy, everything." Linda asked him if he was accepting it. Bruce stared at her a long moment. "I'm preparing for what comes next." The doctors gave him a timeline. 6 months of bed rest. Rehab. Learn to walk again, maybe. Accepting permanently. Bruce gave himself a different timeline. 6 months to full recovery. Not partial, full. And by week 8, he would do something that made a doctor step backward. Bruce refused morphine after the second week. Not because he was tough, because he wanted his mind clear. He wanted to feel everything. He spent 16 hours a day reading medical textbooks, rehab protocols, anatomy diagrams. He wasn't looking for hope. He was looking for a gap. And he found one. Not a magic trick, but a strategy. A synthesis. He began with breathing. Flat on his back, unable to move his legs, he trained his breath like it was a muscle. Diaphragmatic control. Then he started something that looked like madness to everyone around him. He trained movements he couldn't perform. He pictured the kick, the rotation, the shift of weight, the firing of muscles, the snap of the hip. Hour after hour. The doctors called it wishful thinking. Bruce called it practice. Then he added micro-movements, tiny contractions of his abdomen, small pelvic shifts, imperceptible effort that only he could feel. Linda watched him lie perfectly still for 20 minutes, then suddenly smile. "Got it," he'd whisper. Linda would ask, "Got what?" Bruce would say, "Another pathway." He believed the body had redundancies, routes around damaged lines. But they don't activate by themselves. You have to teach them. By week 6, Bruce tried standing with assistance. The room spun. Pain flashed up his spine like electricity. He stood anyway. Then his leg buckled. He dropped hard. Linda rushed to him. Doctors warned him. Early improvement doesn't mean healing. Don't push. Bruce nodded. That night, after everyone left, Linda found him doing breath work again, jaw clenched. Not because he was fearless, because fear would have meant accepting the verdict. 2 weeks later, Bruce stood again. This time he took one step, then another. Then, without warning, he let go. 5 steps, unaided. The doctor watching didn't smile. He frowned, because medically, it didn't make sense. Bruce wasn't supposed to do that yet. After that day, Bruce didn't just recover. He turned rehab into a laboratory. By month 3, Bruce could walk normally. Pain was present, but manageable. Doctors admitted they were impressed. Bruce wasn't. To Bruce, walking wasn't victory. Walking was permission to begin. He built a rehabilitation system that didn't exist in any one tradition. Isometrics to rebuild stability without stressing damaged structures. Slow-motion movement to eliminate compensation. Quarter-speed reps, half-speed reps, perfect form. No momentum. He documented everything. Sets, reps, sensations, spasms, triggers. And the first time he tried a front kick, his leg failed midair. Bruce grabbed a chair to keep from falling. He sat down, waited for the spasm to pass. Then he stood up and tried again. Month 4 brought the return of speed. Small bursts at first. A quick hand snap. A sudden step. Bruce tested his nervous system like a scientist. Slow 100 times. Faster 10 times. Full speed once. If the full speed rep triggered pain, he stepped back, then returned the next day. And the next. And the next. Not bravado. Process. By month 5, he could kick again. Not perfect, not yet, but real. Explosive enough to make his students go quiet. And then Bruce did something no one expected. He changed his entire philosophy. Before the injury, Bruce trained for maximum performance and maximum intensity. That philosophy led him straight into the floor. After the injury, he shifted to longevity, sustainability, recovery. He reduced volume, added mobility, added meditation. Stopped treating pain like an enemy to be conquered. He told Linda, "I was driving a race car with no maintenance schedule. Eventually, something breaks." On August 13th, 1971, exactly 1 year after the injury, Bruce invited his closest students over. No cameras. No press. No hype. He started slow, walking, stretching, basic Wing Chun. Nothing spectacular. Then he accelerated. A side kick that cut the air so fast you heard it before you saw it. A punch combination that turned his hands into a blur. A spinning kick that cracked leather on a heavy bag. His students didn't cheer. They stared, because they weren't watching a recovered man. They were watching a rebuilt man, optimized. The months of slow motion had removed inefficiencies Bruce didn't even know were there. He had reconstructed himself from foundations. One student finally asked how it was possible. Bruce tapped his temple. They measure my spine. They didn't measure this. He said, my body wanted to quit. Pain told it to quit. Doctors told it to quit. X-rays told it to quit. But I didn't let it. Then he delivered the line that carried the entire story. The mind controls the body, always. Later, in private, Bruce admitted the truth about the cause. The good morning didn't injure him. His approach did. Skipping warm-ups. Loading heavy too fast. Pushing through signals that weren't weakness, they were warnings. He called it the most honest lesson his body had ever taught him. Because the body keeps score. It remembers every shortcut, every ignored signal, every debt. And eventually it collects. Bruce paid that bill at 29. He proved the doctors wrong. He rebuilt. He went on to create the work that made him immortal. But even Bruce Lee wasn't invincible. And that's the point. Not never push. Push, but listen. Train hard and train smart. Because breaking is not the same as being broken. One barbell. One mistake. One impossible recovery. And a lesson that still echoes in every gym, every dojo, every training hall. Never, ever skip the warm-up. This story is a work of fiction inspired by real-life themes. And if you want the version people remember, the version that feels like a confession whispered in a quiet gym at midnight, then listen closely, because the detail that haunted Bruce wasn't the pain. It was the sound, that wet, muffled pop, the sound that didn't just say injury. It said limit. Bruce had spent his whole life treating limits like opponents. Something to outthink, outreign, outlast. He believed the body would follow wherever the mind led. And most days it did. That belief made him legendary. It also made him reckless. Because when you live like you're made of steel, you start skipping the small rituals that keep you human. You stop respecting warm-ups. You stop respecting recovery. You stop respecting the quiet signals that whisper before they scream. In the weeks before August 13th, Bruce had been restless. Film meetings, choreography sessions, students rotating in and out of his private space. People asked him to slow down. He smiled. He nodded. He kept going. I'll rest later, he'd say, as if later was guaranteed. That morning, the air in the training space felt heavy. The kind of humid Hong Kong heat that sticks to your skin. Wong remembered Bruce's hands. He kept rubbing them together, like he was trying to warm them up without actually doing the warm-up. His eyes had that look, calm on the surface, racing underneath. The look of a man already at war with the clock. Wong tried again. At least do 2 light sets, he said. Your back is cold. Bruce didn't snap. He didn't argue. He just said, softer than expected, if I don't push now, I'll never know. That's what people miss about Bruce Lee. The push wasn't ego alone. It was fear. Fear of stagnation. Fear of being ordinary. Fear of waking up one day and realizing the edge was gone. So he pushed, and the bill came due. In the hospital, the days blended together. Nurses came and went. The bed sheets smelled like bleach. The ceiling became his horizon. Pain was constant, but worse than pain was the silence in his legs. Bruce would stare at his feet like they belonged to someone else. He tried to will his toes to move. He tried to send signals down the lines, like a commander shouting orders through broken radios. Nothing. That's when the darkness arrived. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Quiet. Heavy. A private place no camera ever saw. Linda brought flowers once. Bruce thanked her. Then he asked her to take them away. The smell is too much, he said. But it wasn't the smell. It was what flowers meant. Sympathy. Finality. Visitors bringing the atmosphere of endings into a room where Bruce refused to end. When a doctor said, never kick again, Bruce didn't react because he didn't believe the doctor had the right instrument to measure him. The doctor had x-rays, charts, statistics. Bruce had something else, the memory of every day he'd ever outlasted pain. And in that stubborn silence, something dangerous formed. Not hope, a plan. He started asking nurses for paper. He wrote down sensations like a scientist tracking an experiment. Left thigh, faint warmth. Right calf, tingling after breathing. Lower back spasm at 3:12 a.m. To anyone else, it looked obsessive. To Bruce, it was data, proof the system was still alive. He asked Linda to bring books, but he also asked her to bring a mirror. He wanted to see his own face while he trained his breath. He wanted to watch his focus. If his eyes drifted, he corrected it. If his jaw tightened, he relaxed it. He wasn't just rehabbing his body. He was rehabbing his mind, the part that panicked when it couldn't control. The doctors were cautious. They called it a good attitude. They warned him about false progress. They warned him about nerve flare-ups. They warned him about permanent damage. What they didn't understand was that warnings, to Bruce, sounded like invitations. At week 6, when he fell, Linda thought it was over. She saw the flash of pain, the way his hands clawed at the mattress, the way his breathing turned sharp. She expected the collapse, not of his body, but of his belief. Instead, Bruce did something that terrified her more than the fall. He laughed once. Not humor, recognition. He looked at Linda and said, "Now I know where the line is." Then he said, "And now I know how to move it." He returned to the bed and started again. Breathing, visualization, micro movements, the smallest reps imaginable. He treated a millimeter of motion like a championship belt. When his abdomen tightened for half a second, he celebrated like a man who just won a fight. When his hip shifted without spasm, he wrote it down. He built progress out of fragments. By week 8, when he took those 5 steps, the doctor's expression wasn't joy. It was concern, because rapid recovery can be dangerous. It can tempt a man to sprint before his bones remember how to walk. Bruce saw that concern and interpreted it his own way. If I can do this, he thought, then the rest is just work. And work was the one thing Bruce Lee never feared. Month 3 became a battlefield of patience. Every exercise done at quarter speed. Every rep controlled. No momentum. No ego. He was fighting the part of himself that wanted to jump ahead. The part that wanted to prove something. The part that had loaded the bar too heavy in the first place. Some days, pain won. He'd stop mid-session, sweat on his brow, hands gripping the chair, waiting for the spasm to loosen. He'd close his eyes and breathe until the nervous system calmed. Then he'd start again, not because he was unstoppable, because stopping felt like dying. Month 4 brought speed back in flashes. A hand snap, a step, a pivot. He tested his fast twitch response like he was reintroducing electricity to a damaged circuit. One wrong surge, and everything could short out. So he learned restraint in a new form, restraint from his own ambition. Month 5 brought kicking back. Not the old kick, not yet, but the outline of it. A ghost of what he used to be, returning piece by piece. And in that return, Bruce discovered something. His old movements had been powerful, but they had hidden inefficiencies. The injury forced him to confront every flaw, every imbalance, every shortcut, every place where speed had covered imperfection. The injury didn't just rebuild him, it refined him. On August 13th, 1971, when his students gathered, the room felt like a trial. No judges, no verdict, just witnesses. People who had seen him collapse. People who had heard the doctor's certainty. People who had watched Linda carry the weight quietly while Bruce rebuilt himself in private. He started slow on purpose. He wanted them to see the foundation before the lightning. Then he accelerated. The kick cut the air with a sound that didn't belong to a man who was supposed to be broken. The punches landed with precision that looked less like rage and more like mathematics. The heavy bag cracked to the seam. Leather split just enough to prove a point. His students weren't cheering because they didn't know what kind of emotion fit the moment. It was awe, yes, but also discomfort. Because if Bruce could do this after being told never again, then what does never again even mean? When a student asked how, Bruce's answer wasn't mystical. It was personal. It was earned. They measure my spine, he said. It didn't measure this. He tapped his temple. Then he said the part that matters. My body wanted to quit. Every day. The pain told it to quit. The doctors told it to quit. The x-rays told it to quit. But I didn't let it. That's the secret that sounds inspirational until you realize how brutal it is. It means waking up every day for 6 months and choosing discomfort on purpose. Choosing slowness. Choosing patience. Choosing to be a beginner inside your own body. Later, when the adrenaline of success faded, Bruce admitted the truth to close friends. The good morning wasn't evil. It wasn't cursed. It wasn't fate. It was a mirror. It showed him his arrogance. It showed him his impatience. It showed him how quickly genius can become recklessness when you stop listening to the body that carries it. He said something that should be printed on the wall of every gym. The injury wasn't bad luck. It was a consequence. Every shortcut, every skipped warm-up, every time he pushed through pain that was telling him to stop, it all stacked up. And on that morning, the debt came due. The body keeps score. It remembers the small betrayals. And one day it sent the invoice. Bruce Lee paid it. Then he rebuilt himself so completely that people who saw him afterwards said he wasn't just recovered. He was better. But the warning remains. Because the tragedy of legends is that their gifts can hide their limits. The same fire that pushes them through walls can also burn the foundation out from under them. So push, train, evolve, but listen. Because even Bruce Lee learned it the hard way. Breaking is not the same as being broken. One barbell, one mistake, one impossible recovery, and a lesson that still echoes long after the lights go out in the gym. Never, ever skip the warm-up.